Who doesn't enjoy a good conspiracy? Those bizarre stories where you don't quite know if they are the truth or something fabricated and spread by others.
No, what are you spraying me with?
Run, so no one will believe your story.
Boxing is no different and has had its fair share of controversial conspiracies that have had the entire community discussing them, some that have lasted for decades. In today's video, we'll explore some of the best conspiracies in boxing and try and discover the truth behind the bizarre stories. Before we do get stuck in though, why not hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell? That way, you'll never miss a future upload. Number 10. Ali vs. Liston, the second fight. On May 25, 1965, heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali, previously known as Cassius Clay, knocked out former champ Sonny Liston in the first round with a punch that barely anybody saw. This infamous moment was dubbed the Phantom Punch. When the first round bell rang, Ali looked incredibly fit as he danced rings around the once feared Liston, who seemed almost lifeless. At the round's midway point, Ali flashed a quick right, which to most in the arena seemed like a tap. To everyone's surprise though, Liston dropped to the canvas. Sonny's career never recovered after the incident. He eventually died in 1970 in Las Vegas of an apparent drug overdose. Ali, however, went on to become a legend of the sport. The Phantom Punch is still discussed today, with no solid reason as to why Liston dropped from what appeared to be a light touch. Number 9. Bradley vs. Pacquiao's fight was fixed. Timothy Bradley handed Manny Pacquiao his first loss in 7 years back in November 2012, after Bradley was handed a 115-113 win, despite every person in Las Vegas' MGM Grand being certain it was Pacquiao who came out on top. Those who watched the fight saw Pac-Man dominating in the 10th, 11th and 12th rounds, only to see him lose. Some say the decision was down to human error, but others believe that it was done on purpose. Former trainer and ESPN boxing analyst Teddy Atlas openly admitted he believed the fight was a fix, a claim that only added fuel to the fire. Another twist in the conspiracy is that both fighters share the same promoter, Bob Arum. When both fighters entered the ring to fight for the first time, there was a rematch already planned. Having such close connection to both fighters, could it be that the promoter knew which one of his fighters to put his money on? Number 8. Fury vs. Wilder, the tampered gloves. Deontay Wilder claimed that Fury loaded his gloves when the two met in the ring in 2018. The claims came after Wilder thought that Fury's gloves didn't look right, just before getting a dent on his head that could have only been caused by a blunt object, which led to his crushing defeat. Not one shy to hit back, Fury refuted the claims on social media.
On his team. I just read an article before saying that I might have had some blunt objects in my gloves. Yeah, two big 19 stone 7, 275-pound destroyers.
Later, BT Sport released the footage of Tyson Fury wrapping his gloves, debunking the tampering conspiracy. Also in the footage, you can see Wilder's trainer watching Fury's hands being wrapped prior to the fight. Had the trainer mistakenly thought he saw something added to the wraps, or did he know all along that Fury was fighting clean? We would love to know what you think in the comments section below. Number 7. Sonny Liston's mysterious demise. With a difficult upbringing and being illiterate, Sonny Liston turned to a life of crime, earning the nickname Yellow Shirt Bandit. Eventually, he got arrested at the age of 20. While inside jail, Liston was convinced to take up boxing by the athletic director at the penitentiary. After a 1-year amateur career on release, Liston turned pro. To fund his lavish lifestyle, he worked within racketeering rings, which entered him into the world of the mob. Now completely engrossed in a world of violence, Liston was unstoppable. In fact, in 1956, when confronted by a policeman using racial slurs, Liston broke his knee and gashed the officer's face. After being released on parole 6 months later, Liston resumed his career, but the commissions didn't want him as he was now linked with organised crime. Eventually, he did manage to creep up the ranks until he was stopped by Muhammad Ali. The two had a rematch, where Liston was dropped by the aforementioned Phantom Punch. In true Sonny Liston style, he clawed back from the fall, but it was when he was training to fight George Chuvalo that Liston was found dead at home by his wife. Police determined that the cause of death was a heroin overdose. The strange thing is, Liston was renowned for having a fear of needles, even cancelling tours in Africa to avoid the vaccinations. What makes Liston's death even more bizarre is that there were no drugs, needles, or puncture marks in sight. Another theory about his death was that he was meant to take a dive in the Wepner fight and had been killed by the mob in retaliation. A post-mortem or investigation was never completed on Liston's body, so the mystery of his death may never be solved. Number 6. CJ Ross's gambling debts. To make mistakes is to be human, and in boxing, we've seen our fair share of scoring mess-ups that have seen the wrong boxer winning. Well, one conspiracy that is a favourite among boxing fans is that CJ Ross may be scoring false on purpose, so that she can win bets and get herself out of debt. Pierre Benoit, Eugenia Williams, Jerry Roth, Dwayne Ford, Dave Moretti and a whole host of judges have all come under heavy fire in the last couple of years for poor scoring. But none more than CJ Ross, who notoriously made poor decisions on the Canelo Alvarez vs Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight. As previously mentioned, Tim Bradley fought legendary Filipino Manny Pacquiao. After what seemed like a relatively easy win for Pacquiao, two judges voted in favour of Bradley, CJ Ross and Dwayne Ford. The loss was regarded as one of the biggest robberies in modern boxing. Less than 18 months later, CJ Ross was hired along with Dave Moretti and Craig Metcalf to score the Mayweather vs Canelo mega fight. In a display of brilliance, the older and much smaller Mayweather defeated the younger and more powerful Canelo. The crowd was left shocked, however, when the fight was ruled a draw. Craig Metcalf and Dave Moretti quickly overruled the atrocity turned in by their colleague, and Mayweather was awarded the win. This put CJ Ross in the crosshairs with the details of her debts coming to light. She quickly resigned from her position before being fired. Many still believe that Ross's poor results were a means to cash in on the fights. But what do you think? Number 5. Who shot Frank Warren? In the 1970s, Frank Warren, who was a cousin of bare-knuckle boxer Lenny McLean, was approached to promote a rematch for McLean because he couldn't find any management. Warren got a flavour for this line of work and continued managing fights, promoting his first licensed show in London 1980. Quickly making deals with major broadcasters, Warren's career as a promoter soared, which later saw him work with the likes of Prince Nassim, Joe Calzaghe, Nigel Benn, Ricky Hatton and Amir Khan. Warren's first world champion, however, was Terry Marsh, who won the IBF title in 1987. In 1988, a court battle ensued between Terry Marsh and Frank Warren as a result of Warren's TV appearance, where he told cameras that Marsh had epilepsy, something that could be damning for the boxer's future. A year later, while leaving a theatre in Barking, a masked man ran through the crowd and shot Warren at point-blank range twice before fleeing. Warren miraculously survived but lost a lung and part of his ribs as a result of the encounter. Marsh was the main suspect as their ongoing court case had turned sour. Police raided Marsh's property and found ammunition for firearms, but could not trace the Luger pistol that had been behind Warren's shooting. The police determined that they couldn't prove the ammunition was ever part of the shooting, as Marsh was formerly a Royal Marine and would have had easy access to bullets. 2 months after the shooting, and without evidence, Marsh was arrested and charged with the attempted murder of Frank Warren and left in police custody. The bullets found in Marsh's house were determined to be unconnected to the Luger used and without proper forensic evidence. Marsh was acquitted by a jury. Frank Warren claims that he now knows who shot him, but refuses to say who. Number 4. Muhammad Ali threw the first Leon Spinks fight. In 1978, Muhammad Ali took on the relatively unknown Leon Spinks, who had amassed a mediocre record up until that point. Shockingly, and to the surprise of almost everybody, Spinks beat Ali, becoming the fastest fighter to ever win the heavyweight world title. The result was so shocking that even the FBI investigated it to rule out foul play. In a rematch just months later, the sluggish and slow Ali who fought Spinks previously had vanished, easily controlling Spinks to win his title back. Spinks' career had peaked at that point, and he never went on to achieve anything like he did with the first fight against Ali. So, did Ali throw the fight so that he could win the title for a third time? Maybe a large amount of money was on the table, and the champ couldn't refuse. Number 3. Don King robbed Mike Tyson. When it comes to boxing legends, Don King is right up there amongst the big names. He was an American boxing promoter responsible for creating historic matches that are still talked about today. But unfortunately for King, many fighters such as Hector Camacho and Muhammad Ali went against him by claiming he cheated them out of millions of dollars. Among the sour fighters was none other than Mike Tyson. Tyson took King to court in 2004, in which the two reached a settlement agreement of $14 million. A low number, considering the suit was originally for $100 million. Tyson didn't hide his feelings toward King at the Hall of Fame ceremony, where the former champ threw a glass of water over the semi-retired promoter. He later admitted that his actions were immature and were done in a moment of rage. But would you still hold resentment if you believed someone owed you $86 million? So, did Don King steal money from the boxer, or was it all part of business? Number 2. Antonio Margarito, plaster of Paris. No boxing conspiracy video would be complete without mentioning Antonio Margarito and his plaster of Paris trick. Before the truth of his dishonesty came to light, Margarito pulled off an incredible win against the previously undefeated Miguel Cotto, the former welterweight world champion. It was when Margarito faced Shane Mosley in 2009 that his cheating ways were exposed. Mosley's trainer Nazim Richardson had noticed a powdery substance in Margarito's gloves and called for an official investigation. It turned out the powder was plaster of Paris, something that is used by artists as a form of clay. When the powder gets wet, like mixed with sweat for instance, it hardens. Margarito felt embarrassed 2 times that night, as after he was outed as a cheater, Mosley knocked him out. Margarito got a year's ban for concealing a weapon, and all his past victories were brought into question. To this day, nobody knows how many of the disgraced boxer's wins were claimed through cheating. And finally, number 1. Amir Khan and the coronavirus. Amir Khan bizarrely questioned the expertise of the world's leading epidemiologists by claiming that COVID-19 is actually a human-made virus that was designed to kill the elderly and lower populations. Though he's a favourite in the ring, Khan's beliefs have been met with ridicule and even outrage. Khan had gone onto Instagram to explain that the pandemic was actually not started in China at all, but was in fact a result of the 5G phone towers being put all over the world. He even went on to explain that the reasons the governments are doing this is to control the population by keeping us indoors, as well as a way to kill the vulnerable to tackle overpopulation. The UK Cabinet Secretary Michael Gove said that the boxer's words were dangerous nonsense. The light welterweight world champion hasn't fought in over a year due to the outbreak of the virus, with the boxer even hinting last month that he may even retire if the sport doesn't get back to normal soon. And that concludes our list of the top conspiracies in the world of boxing. Are there any conspiracies that you've heard that didn't make the list? We'd love to read them in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and show your support. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you never want to miss one of our future boxing related videos. If you can't wait for the next video, feel free to take a look at our older uploads. Until next time, thanks for watching.